Hello everyone and welcome back to my opinion. And India have won this game by 96 runs and clinched the series 3-0. And so for both teams there were some changes. For the West Indies there was one change with Hayden Moss Jr. being brought into the side in place of Akil Hussain, and Karan Pollard was still on the bench. And for India there were four changes with Dhawan coming in for KL Rahul, Shreyas Iyer coming in for Deepak Hooda, Deepak Chair coming in for Shardul Thakur, and then Kuldeep Yadav coming in for Yuzvendra Chahal. And so Rohit Sharma won the toss and chose to bat first. And I think this was to test the batting lineup again in the same situation where they it wasn't easy, but they managed to get a reasonable score in the previous game. And I think this was another opportunity to test the batting lineup in the same situation. Because since they'd already wrapped the series up in the previous game, they could afford to take this decision, or rather bat first in this game by choice rather than having to do that in the previous game. So yeah. The first ball of the innings went for 4 and Rohit Sharma cut a wide one from Kemar Roach to the boundary. But like in the previous game, the West Indies dominated the power play, picking up 3 wickets. Rohit Sharma was played on for 13 off Azari Joseph. And then in the same over, Virat Kohli was strangled on the leg side by Azari Joseph. A slightly unlucky dismissal, but still overall the series hasn't been a good one for Virat Kohli. And despite a stunning 6 from Shikhar Dhawan where he hit the ball over cover, if you subtract that 6, he scored 10 off 26 overall. But if you subtract that, he scored 4 off 25. And clearly from getting the ball away, it was quite difficult for him. And so he got out, caught in the slips. And India once again found themselves in not a great position when they were 42 for 3, 1 run worse than they were in the previous game. And the 4th wicket partnership, which saved them in the previous game, despite the fact that in this game was different personnel, it could have ended fairly early as there was a run-out opportunity where if there was a direct hit, Shreyas Iyer would have been out by some distance and India would have been in quite some trouble then. But he wasn't out, and the 4th wicket partnership, just like in the previous game, in this game was even better because they put on 110 off 127, and both these players it was great. It was great partnership batting because Shreyas Iyer was absorbing all the pressure and going kind of much more slowly, and while Rishabh Pant was maintaining the run rate while being the aggressor, and the partnership was going so well until that Rishabh Pant got out. And he got out trying to play the shot, which he did play a few times in the innings, where the ball, he tried to cut the ball that was too close to him, and in this case the ball was pitched slightly further up and he got caught behind. And he had tried the cut shot off the spinner, where the ball was quite a bit close to him, and to the same degree in the previous shots. So I there was always a risk of him whenever he played that shot. So I think it was a matter of time before he was caught behind. And yeah, he was out. Despite he's played a brilliant innings of 56, and he would have been disappointed because the partnership was going really well. And had he continued, India got 265 in the end. They could have got some more near that 280 had the partnership continued for a little longer. So yeah, he got out. And very soon after, Surya Kumar Yadav, he hit a boundary of Fabian Allen in the same fashion that he got out in the previous game. He played the sweep shot, and he hit it through the same area that he got caught in. Near the same area where he got caught in. But then the very next ball, it was a disappointing dismissal. A brilliant catch by Sharma Brooks, but 6 off 7, and it was he got out at the wrong time when he probably would have needed to stay in and build a partnership with the set batsman who was Shreyas Iyer. There was a bit of a partnership afterwards between him, Shreyas Iyer, and Washington Sundar, where Shreyas Iyer then got out after a while trying to attack the spinner for a brilliant 80 off 111. And then I think he thought India still had a decent foundation by then despite the fact that there wasn't too much batting to come afterwards, if Sundar and Deepak Chahar had kind of stuck around for a bit, and if India could get even close to the score they got in the previous game, they would still take it. And in the end, India got more than that because of 2 good 30-odd scores by Chahar and Washington Sundar. And all in all, 265, and it was quite a substantial total for this surface. And the West Indies, look, they didn't, as far as their legal deliveries, they didn't bowl badly as such. But I think the thing that really hurt them was the extras. 20 extras with 18 wides. I think that really hurt the West Indies. And looking at their figures, I think some bowlers bowled kind of a bowled better than their figures suggest, with Alzari Joseph with 2 for 54 and 10. And Hayden Moss Jr. had a good game for quite a bit of the game, but I think his last over that he bowled, he lost the plot a bit. And 2 for 59 and 10. And those 2 wickets, I think, were Rishabh Pant and Shreyas Iyer. So he did have a good game until then, but I think the last over kind of made his spell overall a bit expensive. And that was the innings. So clearly West Indies would have felt that despite the fact that they didn't really bowl too badly and they bowled quite well, for especially in the early part of the game, they would have been disappointed that they in the end the score was 265. So the West Indian chase, and the West Indies, this was honestly this innings really, it was a tough ask, but this innings really was not the greatest. And the wickets were just basically, in fact, the 2 biggest partnerships of the innings actually came in the 8th and 9th wicket stand of 40 and 47 respectively. And the first wicket to go was Shea Hope off a wrong decision in the end, because the ball was going over the stumps, and he kind of jumped up a bit as well, so his feet weren't on the floor, and it hit him high. The ball hit him high on the pad, so I think that it was slightly unlucky for him. But then the moment Shea Hope went, I think the West Indian chase he thought that he had to bat through and anchor the innings on a tough pitch, while the others batted around him. And since he was gone early in the piece, and the West Indies basically lost the game in the first 5 overs, because they were 25 for 3 with both their anchors that they relied on to kind of navigate them through this chase, with the others batting around them, were dismissed cheaply. One kind of an unlucky way where the ball was missing the stumps, but the other one, it was a disappointing dismissal where the ball went so aerial, just straight to the fielder when he was playing the drive. And 0 of 3 for Shamar Brooks. And the West Indies were up against it from very early on in this chase. Darren Bravo and Nicholas Pooran were batting. There was a decent partnership of, I think, 40 odd, until Darren Bravo got caught in the slips. Again, not a great shot from him. And I actually heard on commentary that Darren Bravo, he was out of the team for quite a while. But since he's come back into the side, he's played 50 games and he scored 2 50s and 100. And literally nothing else. And that's what I'm trying to say, that for quite a few games that I was seeing that Darren Bravo had got out quite cheaply. And I think that ever since he's returned back to the side, bar those 3 contributions, he hasn't really had a great time of things, and it's important that he gets back to the form that I remember that time when, I think it was quite a long time ago. The first time I'd really seen Darren Bravo bat was in the 2013 ODI series against West Indies, after the Test series in which Sachin Tendulkar retired, where in the second ODI he scored a great 50. And that was the first time I saw Darren Bravo bat. He's a quality player. The West Indies really need someone who's as experienced as him to be that versatile player who can dig the team out of a tough situation, or really establish a good foundation, or capitalize on a good thing. At his position, number 3, establish a good foundation. And I've seen him play well in quite a few innings, but ever since he's come back into the team, he really hasn't had a great time of things, and it's important that he gets back into form. And Nicholas Pooran played quite well this innings, I thought, because everyone else pretty much the wickets were falling all around him, and yet he still scored 34 of 39. He stayed there for he didn't always have the strike, but he stayed there for quite a while until he was caught in the slips of Kuldeep Yadav. But before then, there were a few wickets like Jason Holder, 6 of 12, Fabian Allen 0 of 1, and I'm basically just narrating these because this innings was honestly, for the most part, a really, really poor innings. And if you think about the fact that in a 3-match ODI series, their highest score has been 188, and that too chasing 238. And I know you could say the dew wasn't there. And speaking of dew, there was dew in this game, which just shows that if they had just held their nerve in the first few overs, the majority would have of the game, or especially in the latter phase, the last 20 overs or so, the West Indies would have had the advantage. They needed 109 off 99 at one point, but by then they had 2 wickets left. And I know the thing is, if you actually look at the stats in the series, the lower order has actually had a better series with the bat than the top 6, or definitely the top order. And you could say, despite the fact that they have the batting ability, the lower order, you could say the West Indies may have been slightly in it. But even then, 8 wickets down. And that's why when the spinners were going for a few runs, and India's fielding wasn't the greatest, I think that when they saw they were in a winning position, I think that the concentration levels did drop off. But the fact that the West Indies could have won this game if they had the wickets in hand, especially with the dew coming in, quite a bit of dew in the latter part of the second innings, a substantial amount of overs could have been played with West Indies having the advantage, with batsmen from the top 6 still there. But it wasn't to be. And this is really overall the takeaways from West Indies in this tour, is that the top 6 haven't been getting the runs for them in ODIs. And if you actually look at the players in this team, they're not bad players at all. And it just would be even more frustrating that it's not really an issue in selection, because even without Evan Lewis and even without Shimron Hetmyer for fitness reasons, this is still quite a solid top 6. And so I think that the fact that they still aren't really getting the kind of a good totals, even with this solid top 6, is, I think they feel quite frustrated. And that's a major takeaway in the series, is that, as I said before, there was a life in the 2018 to 19 series, I think in 2018, when you saw Shimron Hetmyer and Nicholas Puran really score runs. And especially in that tied game in Visakhapatnam, where Shai Hope scored 123 of 134. That series really had a bit of life in it, whereas the moment it was going to be the fact that the pitches were hard to bat on. Yes, the West Indies bowled well, but with their batting not firing, it was always going to be difficult for them to capitalise on the good work that their bowlers did. And in the end, if you look at it, the bowlers have had to bowl and also they've had to bat, and they've batted better than the top order. So that's on them. I just feel like there are a few ways they could go about this team. I mean, for me, look, Shai Hope obviously has to be a mainstay in this team. And you could say with Evan Lewis coming back in the future, they would get a bit more rather... There's certainly consistency, and when he does play well, he'd probably, on the whole, play more impactful innings than Brandon King has. Despite the fact he's a good player, he hasn't really played this real impact inning to the top of the order. And Darren Brover has to come good. He's so experienced, and as I said, he's one of the players who really he needs to be versatile, and he is versatile, but he hasn't been scoring runs at all, bar those 3 contributions that I talked about in 50 matches. So I think that, he has to come good for this side. And I think that if Shimron Hetmyer does come back in, it would probably have to be at the expense of Shamar Brooks, with Nicholas Puran moving to number 4 and Hetmyer number 5. And there are 2 things I want to say here. One, with the batting lineup that it isn't getting runs in ODI cricket, and you have to really kind of reset almost, or at least you have good play. They're very good players here, but to really get the confidence going and to get the momentum of getting decent ODI totals, you could say Shai Hope and Shamar Brooks anchoring the innings at opening the batting and at number 4. It isn't such a bad thing, as the others can bat around them. But at the same time, you'd be thinking you'd want to put someone like a Shimron Hetmyer subject to fitness in this side, because he is such a talented player. And coming to the other player who's on the bench today, the captain of the side, who captained the first innings, and he has been the captain of the West Indies' white ball teams for quite some time now, and that is Kieron Pollard. As I said before, if you are going to accommodate those players like a Hetmyer, I don't think there's any room in this team for a Karen Pollard, because if you look at the top six, if Hetmeyer does come back, you look at Shea Hope, Evan Lewis, Darren Bravo, Nicholas Purin, then there's Shimon Hetmeyer, and there's Jason Holder and Fabian Allen. And that's a very good top seven. And as I said, you don't have to go at exorbitant rates like you do in T20s for ODIs. And even when, let's say, you're relatively up against it in terms of run rate in ODI standards, let's say if you have to go 8.5 and over or 8.2 and over, something like that for quite a decent period of time, there is a requirement of a certain responsibility that you have to show. And look, right now that isn't the West Indies' problem. Right now that's the thing of actually stringing together a good batting innings in ODIs. But if you look at both those things, where if you're up against the run rate, where you have to kind of take a few risks, or at least increase the run rate, or just doing what I said before, which is their problem that they've been by just structuring a good ODI innings. Would Karen Pollard help in any of those things? Now, I know I touched on this in the previous video, but I think this game shows their most disappointing performance, even though there was due. That's the thing. Even with due in the last 20 overs or so, they've still got bowled out for 169. And would Karen Pollard really help any of these things? No, because there has to be this certain responsibility in ODI cricket, and it's not the same as trying to go at a high run rate in T20 cricket. And when you have to dig your team out of a tough situation, we've seen that Karen Pollard in ODIs doesn't necessarily do that as well as someone like a Jason Holder. In fact, there's not even a comparison there, really. So I just feel like if you're trying to accommodate all these players who do come back in, and there is talent there in this lineup, and it's not like that they've selected players who shouldn't be there. These are very good players, but they just don't have the confidence at the moment. And I think that they need I think that these players can really score good ODI totals as a collective, but there are a few ways to go about it. And in terms of selection as well, I personally think Jason Holder coming back to captaincy, to captain the side, would be good. Now, you may think that if there's a different captain for T20s and ODIs, it wouldn't be good, and that is true. But if they are playing Jason Holder in T20s, and I personally thought that he isn't a complete shoo-in in the T20 format, but since they are playing him there, I think that if it results, I think Jason Holder could still be captain, since he does play regularly in the T20 setup as well. So that's the reason why I just think that, despite the fact that Pollard, he's a T20 legend, but if you look at the dynamics of his ODI batting, you're going to get a win when he's batting in, rather not about the team's wins, but as far as his contribution, you aren't really going to get too many instances where he really plays well. Because, as I said, if you're already trying to go at a decent rate, or if you're behind the run rate in a chase, then there has to be a certain responsibility, and it's not the same as chasing in a T20 game. And also, when you have to rescue the team, he just seems to get out. So that's on him. And the bowling attack this series, though, has been very good in conditions that have helped the bowlers. And I actually think Ozari Joseph in this tour has been very good with the ball. Kemar Roach is a very dependable bowler up top. Fabian Allen's bowling has been quite... They've all been quite good, actually, for the West Indies. And I think that overall, there has been a positive with the ball in this tour. And actually, if you look at Dean Smith, who I think has been their biggest positive, I don't want to harp on about Pollard too much, but if he had played these two games, then we probably wouldn't have seen Dean Smith come into the side. And now that he's in the side, you've seen how well he's bowled. And even with the bat, he's very handy with the bat. So that's on them. And the positives with the bowling, but with the batting, they have the players, but things are going to have to be worked on. And as far as India are concerned, I think that the bowlers have been brilliant. As I said, Prasidh Krishna, I think, is named the man of the series in this series, and rightfully so. 9 wickets, And I do think, look, the IPO auction is happening tomorrow, and I do still think that his death bowling would be in question if you are transitioning to the T20 format, because even in this series, he hasn't actually bowled in a situation where the batsmen are trying to go after him. When he got the 4 for 12, it was when he set the tone himself. And I think that, as I said in the first game, they picked a seam attack where, since the batting conditions were difficult, they just picked a seam attack that hits a length. And I think that if you've actually looked at these three batting innings for the West Indies, apart from a kind of a minor, you could say there was a thing where they were getting close in the second ODI, things haven't really gone kind of slam bang death overs. And so I actually think because of that, they've been able to pick this attack, and this attack have thrived with the method that they've used. These seamers that India have picked in this series. A masterclass today by Deepak Chahar and Mohammad Siraj in swinging the ball. Deepak Chahar, honestly, if you compare him to Bhuvneshwar Kumar, I think that, look, both of them swing the ball, but for me, Deepak Chahar swings the ball longer, swings the white ball longer than anyone else in the world. I mean, the only person who come into the conversation who maybe equal to that is Trent Boult. Apart from those two bowlers, no one else swings the ball for a long period of time. And Shaheen's coming up now, but I still think that we've seen bursts of him, but I think it's still a small sample size. So as kind of, let's say in 1 or 2 years, maybe he would come up into the conversation. But as far as consistently swinging the ball for a long period of time, certainly Deepak Chahar in the last few years and Trent Boult have been the two standouts. And so I think that if Deepak Chahar in the death bowling front, where Bhuvneshwar Kumar is better, if he develops a good bouncer, if he develops the variations that Bhuvneshwar Kumar has, then I really think that he would be a shoo-in to open the bowling in the ODI World Cup in a year and a bit's time. I really think this is a masterclass from Deepak Chahar. And as I said, he swung the ball for longer than anyone else in the last few years. And I think that the bowlers really had a good positive. Kuldeep Yadav bowled today, a slightly expensive 2 for 51 and 8, but the due factor has to be considered. And he got 2 wickets, and I thought that he had a good performance as well. And look, a big positive for India also is the fact that they've managed to rescue themselves from a tough situation. I think if you look at all 3 games, okay, the first game they weren't chasing a big score, but 119 for 4, 116 for 4, something like that, I think. And yet Suryakumar Yadav and Deepak Huda managed to see the team home. Then 42 for 3, 43 for 3 and 42 for 3. And yet that 4th wicket partnership, and with different personnel as well, has really come good with the players getting quite decent scores. And I think that the Indian middle order really responded to the test of the surface when they're batting in the first innings. And another thing really is Rohit Sharma's captaincy has been, especially in the last 2 games, has been absolutely sublime. In the previous game, when the bowlers were being hit, yes, the Yuzvendra Chahal and Washington Sundar bowled 2 really critical overs, and they bowled brilliantly, which effectively put the game to bed. But when frustrations were building, Rohit Sharma set very good fields to make it a challenge for the West Indies to hit big, to make it the chance for Dean Smith to hit big. And in this game, he was so attacking, considering that the wickets were being lost quickly, and for one point when Azari Joseph was batting, there were 2 slips on the offside and then a leg slip as well. I think that it was really, his captaincy has been outstanding in this series. And I know, look, I was like kind of a bit sad to see that Kohli wasn't the captain after he announced that he was stepping down from captaincy. But I really think that the tactical edge that Rohit Sharma has brought to this team, to this whiteboard setup, has been phenomenal. And I just think that, as I said in my previous video, Kohli not being captain, that's a slight reduction in spotlight, let's say, I'm sure would help him in his batting. And with Rohit Sharma, I think that since he hasn't led India in all 3 formats for 7 years, he only kind of led them in the whiteboard setup on and off, I think that he would really be taking to this role quite well. And yeah, India really, as far as the captaincy front, let's say if a team tries to attack them and they're under pressure in when they're defending a score, the tactical nous of Rohit Sharma really would, I feel, would help India in those situations. And yeah, that's this game. Now, I know in my previous video I said I'd say my preferred 11 for this Indian ODI team, and I'm going to say it now. Opening Rahul and Rohit, and number 3 Virat Kohli. And number 4 is an interesting one because if they play Rishabh Pant at 4, and by the way, in the end he batted at number 5 in this game, so clearly the other game was just a bit of an experiment, which makes it even more bizarre that they chose to give him that opportunity in those conditions, in that situation. But anyway, back to this. If he does bat at number 4, I think it's Surya Kumar Yadav at number 5, Hardik Pandya at 6. And I'm not putting Jadeja on my team because if you have Hardik Pandya and Jadeja, Hardik Pandya, if you don't know if he's going to bowl or not, and Jadeja, who is not a 10 overs bowler, you can't have both of those two in the team. So Akshar at number 7. I know he's not featured in ODIs that much, but it would be good to try him out. Ashwin at 8 because I want someone who turns the ball in a different way to Akshar Patel, despite the fact that Akshar Patel doesn't turn the ball much. And then Thakur 8, Ashwin 9, Bhuvneshwar Kumar 10, and Bumrah 11. So I think that side has 4 paces if Hardik Pandya can bowl, and he can bowl at least 6 or 7 overs in most games. And in fact, if he's fit, he can bowl 6 or 7 overs in basically every game. And yeah, they have spinners in Akshar Patel and Ashwin. And in the batting lineup, they really have quite. I think through the middle order, they score at quite a brisk pace. I just think that really toning the responsibility and temperament will be something, especially for Rishabh Pant at number 4. But I think that if he forms that, he has probably, I'd say, the most important role in the side, because the top 3 are brilliant. But Rishabh Pant, the thing that will really make it gel, if he really provides that good transition between the number 3 and the number 5. He has to play that role, and right now it may be a bit of a stretch for him, but if he does play number 4, then I think that this team would be a very good one. And there could be variants, for example, if Rahul bats at number 4 and Shikhar Dhawan opens the batting, and if Shreyas Iyer, if Rishabh Pant bats at number 5 like he did in this game, then you would think that Shreyas Iyer, you could put Shreyas Iyer at number 4 to be that kind of a bridge player, or Rahul at number 4 and that one opening. So there are a few combinations, but I do think that with the bowling resources that India have found, when not necessarily in the death bowling because they've not had to, but certainly to use bowling friendly conditions. And yeah, this Chahal, the 2 games he played out of 3 in this series, he's really played well. He's bowled brilliantly, taking 5 wickets all in all. And that's on this series, and India will be very happy with the positives that they've got out of this series. And yeah, that's effectively this series. And very soon an IPO video will be coming out on who teams will be targeting, I feel, in the auction. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe, and please share this video with your friends. And remember, this is my opinion. What's yours?